The Reserve Bank has raised the official cash rate again as it attempts to curb inflation. Now at 2%, it's the highest it's been since 2016. But as the squeeze on everyday Kiwis continues, is there more that the government could be doing to control the situation? To discuss, I'm joined by ACT leader David Seymour. Good morning to you, David. No surprise that there's been a hike in the OCR. We're all expecting it. What more can be done to ease the financial stress that no doubt most Kiwis are feeling?
Oh, look, people are getting hammered, especially with this latest mortgage rate rise, on top of rising costs and everything else they buy. If you want to solve a problem, you've got to define it. Inflation is too much money chasing after too few goods. We have too few goods because we have pre-departure testing, we have slow immigration, we have isolation periods that are unworkable, slowing down production. Then we've got a government that is on a spending binge, 5.9 billion of extra spending, that adds in there. And then we've got a Reserve Bank that has been asleep at the wheel, partly because they're not doing their job, frankly, but partly because when this government was first elected, they basically said to the Reserve Bank, don't worry about inflation, and took away the law that said the Reserve Bank must only focus on inflation. So if you define the problem, you've got to get rid of unworkable COVID rules, stop spending like drunken sailors in the beehive, and then put the Reserve Bank's focus back on fighting inflation the way it was before Labor came in.
But this isn't going to be the last rise. The Reserve Bank themselves have said this is probably not going to be the last.
Oh, we're on track to go to 3.5%, some people say 4% at the OCR. If you want to know what your mortgage rate, put 2 or 3%. We're headed for 6-7% mortgage rates on this current cycle.
Gun violence, we've seen a huge blowout in the last couple of days alone with this. We've seen our Prime Minister appear over in the States on her trip talking about what we have done to mitigate it, the military-style weapons. Do you think she's painting a flattering picture of what it's like at the moment?
Oh, look, I think the Prime Minister is frankly delusional if she thinks we're on top of gun violence in New Zealand. They have always had a much bigger problem in the US, but right now our cities are starting to look like LA with these gang wars. The government has always put spin over substance. This is a government that came in saying gangs are our friends. They even paid them money on government contracts, and now they wonder why this is happening. They banned all the guns in New Zealand allegedly. The gangs said we won't hand them in. They said that's okay, it's basically just a policy for people that follow the law. We are now reaping what this government has sown. The idea that gangs are our friends was their mantra when they were elected Labor government, and now people are suffering by feeling they can't go out on the street.
So what's the fix? What would you do?
Look, you've got to get tough on gangs, and the way you do that is you say, first of all, if you're a gang member dealing illegal drugs with illegal firearms, it's open season on your assets. Basically put up their tax rate. They put up tax on smoking. They seem to be putting up tax on working, saving and investing. Let's put up the tax on gangs would be a good start. Then we bring in gang injunction orders or gang control orders. They've worked in the UK. They're a good behaviour contract for people getting into the gang lifestyle that we want to come off it. And then you start doing things like, why do we pay schools based on enrolment rather than attendance? We need a laser focus on getting kids to actually attend schools. Unfortunately, the government's been focused on every fantasy in the book except for basic things based on basic values that keep people safe.
Is this going to make a dent? I mean, taxing gangs, I mean, you say taxing gangs, that seems like it's an irony in itself.
Well, you know, give them a taste of their own medicine. But frankly, you know, at the moment, they pay no tax, $500 million worth of P, $50 million of civil asset forfeiture. That's a 10% tax rate. Even the ACT Party's not offering you a 10% tax rate, and you follow the law as far as I know. Now, you know, we got to start thinking practically. How do you take away the incentives so that no young person's best prospect is becoming a gang prospect?
Very quickly, we're out of time, but I do want to touch on Nanaia Mahuta. You're not happy with her at the moment?
No, look, Nanaia Mahuta and this government had a one-track mind during COVID. We abandoned our neighbours, the Chinese didn't, and now our geopolitical situation has changed in a very dangerous way. She should be out there doing a tour of the Pacific Islands saying, sorry we turned our back on you for 2 years, we're here now, how can we help, and do you really want to take any more money from those people with the chequebook and set up military bases, because they're not nice people in the long term.
Do you have concerns about New Zealand's security?
Massive concerns. Our geopolitical situation used to be what Helen Clark called a benign strategic environment. And she was right when she said that in 2004. It's not true now, and that's why in ACT's alternative budget for real change, we said we've got to go to 2% of GDP expenditure on defence, match Australia, go to them and say we want ANZAC back, because if we can't defend ourselves as part of an ANZAC alliance, then we can't afford to defend ourselves.
All right. ACT Party Leader David Seymour, thanks for your time. Lovely to see you in studio this morning.
Cheers.